All right, guys. Hey, Paul McLean here, and welcome to the Monday Morning Wake Up Podcast. And we got a special edition for you. It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday morning. You see, that was Monday Morning Wake Up Podcast. Well, because we got my buddy Juan Archuleta on, we made an exception to have another one this Tuesday. And coming right before his fight, Juan, we go way back to prior to high school, right? Junior high.
Yeah. Yep. Junior high.
So,
It's been a long time.
dude, it's been a long time, man. And man, I've been excited to see your success and all that you've accomplished with mixed martial arts and what it seems like, I don't even know, dude, you've had so many different weights or belts in different weight classes. What belt do you have now with Bellator? Is it the Bantamweight?
Yeah, I'm the Bantamweight, the 135-pound champion. So, yeah, I mean, I've likewise with you as well, Paul. It's been awesome seeing your life flourish, your family life, your business life. I mean, I think we fed off each other. It was more competition than anything growing up. It's good to have that competition nature with a friend that you could like look at and say, okay, I want to do just as good as he's doing, or like build off his success. I'm glad he's doing well. Like, how can I do that with my career, or what outlet can I find that's going to inspire me and continue for me to grow in the sport? After seeing you doing well in your business and then owning your own business. And me at the time, I was, winning titles for lower MMA shows. I wanted to keep challenging myself like you were doing. And so challenging myself for me in MMA was competing in different weight classes, seeing if I could win different belts in different divisions. So to have a friend that you grow up with and have that competitive nature and still be proud of what they're doing was definitely a good push.
Well, I'll tell you what, dude, I appreciate you saying that. In the small city that we grew up in, there wasn't many circles where you could say, hey, if I spend some time with this person, it's going to help me elevate and bring out better characteristics, better qualities in myself. And I can't think of anybody better to have than you on here to talk today to everybody, man. And that's that's probably one point everybody can make too is, hey, who in your circle is raising you up or who in your circle is taking you down? Because there's not a neutral individual. Either they're elevating you, it's like an elevator, they're bringing you up, they're stretching you, making you grow, or they're drawing you down, where you get around and you're like, dude, I just feel like I need to take a bath. Like I got baptized years ago, but I get man.
Oh yeah.
It's
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
it's been great, man. And I know you've had, dude, you've been one of those, versatile guys where it's just like you're going to elevate and take on challenges. And that was reflected in how many weight classes that you won, man, with all these different other venues and platforms. And now to be on Bellator, which is a massive MMA stage, is pretty cool. And you got a fight coming up this Friday, which we'll want to talk about. But I really want to get into the mindset and for everybody to kind of lean in and listen to your thought process, because in MMA, the one thing I've always realized is that, man, it's like you're not competing against people in Southern California, dude. Like you're competing against the entire world. Like, dude, like you got to be like, I think about basketball. Juan, I thought I was good at basketball. I know you did too. And then we stopped growing.
Yeah, for sure.
It ain't gonna happen. But even basketball, dude, like you don't have the whole entire world necessarily that's able to go out. But in MMA, man, like the whole world is competing at these top levels. When you think about MMA, you think about UFC and Bellator. Those are the two big, venues, big platforms. And so you've accomplished this championship level. And so there's a lot for us to kind of dive into. And I'm going to try to get as much value every single week. I tell everybody that watches, the Monday Morning Wake Up Podcast, my goal is to bring as much value to you as possible so you can go out and make this week better than last week. And so as we get into it, man, I want to first kind of start with a little bit about your story. We both went to the same junior high school, went to the same high school. And then I graduated, you graduated, you went out and pursued a wrestling degree in Purdue. I went and pumped septic tanks and then ended up getting into the insurance business. But talk about kind of how it unfolded as you went out there across country into a different state, what took place and what kind of led you to, get into the mixed martial arts career that you're in now.
Yeah. So, going back with mind state, like how to get in this mind state growing up, I'm one of seven. My four older brothers wrestled. So I was always trying to fill big shoes for me. Like my brothers were great wrestlers. They were a lot better than I was. And so for me, it was always playing catch up and trying to inspire our I was inspired by them, but also trying to get recognition from my dad, trying to get recognition from my brothers. So chasing something that sometimes is a false illusion, like, man, they're going to be proud of you no matter what you do. Like, you could obviously with what your passion is, like, of course, if you're a bum, you're a bum, right? But if you're successful and you pour your heart into what you love doing, then your parents are going to be proud of you no matter what. So, that was my mind state, was I always got to catch up and win these tournaments that that my brothers have, and need to do more. So going into high school, talking about chasing giants, I was only 90 pounds my freshman year, wrestling at 103 pounds, not very big, not a very big guy going into high school. So I already had that disadvantage of going against giants, so to speak, wrestling guys that were bigger than me, stronger than me, better than me, faster, more athletic. And, and so I think for me, that's what made me want to thrive and work hard and be the guy that wanted to be strong, be athletic, take first place in these tournaments. And going through high school, I was never a state champ. And so that continued to lead the drive and lead the way on wanting to do things in wrestling that I haven't done yet, or that I haven't overcame these adversity problems of making the semifinals and not becoming a champion yet in big tournaments. And it didn't actually happen until my first year of competing in college. I was the Sac City, California state champion. And then from there led me into having a degree and a full ride scholarship at Purdue University, where I competed at 141 pounds. So now growing into my body and actually becoming a guy that was going to be able to compete with people, being in a Big Ten program, I thought I made it. I thought my dad's proud of me. My brothers are happy I'm wrestling Division One. I'm wrestling the top 20 ranked guys every weekend, every week. I got a dual match on Wednesday that I would wrestle the top 10 guy in the country. In the weekend, I would wrestle in the tournament where most of the top 25 ranked guys were, and I'm beating these guys my sophomore year, having good success. Well, halfway through the year, I blow out my knee, and I still have to continue wrestling because I passed the halfway mark where it was like, you either get the knee surgery or you burn that year and you can't get it back. So I had to just wrestle with a torn PCL and a messed up meniscus. Didn't come out of the Big Ten tournament. Again, back at the drawing board, disappointed in myself, not accomplishing what I wanted to do, which was ultimately become a national champion, but at least becoming an All-American in the national tournament. But I didn't even do that. I didn't even make the national tournament. So going into next year, had a chip on my shoulder and was like, man, no one's helping me. I need to do this on my own. Like, totally went the self-made route. Like, I'm going to be self-made. Like, I don't need no one's help to do this. I got this on my own. Well, everything was going well, beating number 1, number 2 ranked guys in the country, but still losing here and there throughout the year. Finally make the national tournament, lose first round, and I had to bounce back. I was like, okay, I lost my first match. There goes my national championship goal. But the goal is still to All-American. Like, that's my mindset. Like, at least place, at least get on the podium and prove to myself that I'm one of the best wrestlers in the country. So making it to the round of 16, where I'm almost in the placing rounds, I'm winning. There's 10 seconds left, and I thought for sure there's no way I lose this match. Well, this guy starts swinging on me and jabs me in the eye. I lose my temper. I slap the guy in the face, and I throw my hands up. My eyes like swollen shut, and the referee, gives him a penalty point for me retaliating. It's always the guy that retaliates that, gets cost the point. And so I was like, oh man, like, there goes my season. Like, miss podium again. Like, don't place. Like, then I really start, because I grew up a Christian. Then I really start like turning my back towards God, turning my back towards my faith, like really wondering, questioning myself, like, what's taking the biggest hit? Oh, maybe it's school. Maybe it's, hanging out with people. I'm not putting everything I have into my training. Okay, my next year, all summer, I'm just going to train, get strong, develop myself as an athlete, and then put academic secondary. So going into the school year that year, I was doing well in school. I'm not saying that I was, completely messing off in school. I was still had about, 2.9, close to 3.0 GPA, especially at Purdue University, very demanding. And now I was in my upper level classes in Spanish and, for my major. And so I take school, that takes the back seat. I start competing and I'm winning tournaments. I'm ranked number 2 in the country at this time. And Russell, the number 1 ranked guy in December. And I lose to him in overtime. And I'm like, okay, I could deal with that. Like, it was a close match. I lost in overtime. Like, but I'm right there. Like, I know where I'm at and I'm putting my all into wrestling. And grades come out and I got a D in one of my upper level 500 classes. Well, with your upper level classes, you got to have a C or better. Otherwise you get dropped from your ineligible for your major. So I get a D. I talked to the professor. I asked her, is there anything I could do? Cause it's a Spanish linguistics class. Is there anything I could do to possibly, bump my grade up to a 69%? Like, all I need is a 69, a C minus. Come on. She's like, yeah, you know what? For all the questions you missed in the final, I want a 3-page report. Write it out and bring it back to me and we'll talk. And I was like, okay. So I do this. It takes me about a week and a half. I take it to her and she tells me, well, it's not really ethical of me to do because I didn't offer it to the rest of the class, so I'm not going to grade it. And then it just felt like the worst punch I've ever got delivered to anywhere in my body. Just devastated. And I kind of pushed the issue like, no, you need to do this. She's like, no, I don't. Like, and you need to get out of my office before I call security. I said, well, you better call security because I'm not leaving. Like, you need to, I'm going to stand here until you grade this and give me this C. And then she was like, well, I'm calling security. So security comes, they escort me out of the building. I'm devastated. I go tell my coach, I tell them what happened. They try to make things right. Doesn't happen. I'm ineligible for the rest of the year. And from there, addiction sits in. I'm devastated. I'm like embarrassed, most importantly, to tell my parents, like, man, I can't compete. Like, I'm not going to be able to wrestle in the national tournament. Like, there goes everything I've worked for since I was 3 years old, wrestling, growing up on the wrestling mats, have just been crushed, all by a stupid decision of not finding balance in life, not doing all the little things to make you a champion. Right. And that's where I was lacking that. And, but at the time I didn't know. I was like, I'm gonna turn to alcohol. Like, this lady screwed me over. I was blaming other people. I wasn't at fault. Like, this other person was. She controlled my destiny, not me. And so, started turning to alcohol and was addicted to it. Was drinking every night, like getting in fights, like beating people up, taking their money to just so I could eat the next day. Like, just living like a complete scumbag. And eventually, it catches up to you. I'm at a party in an apartment complex. I ride this guy's bike home, expensive bike. I bring it back to him. He freaks out on me. He files a police report, said he didn't know me. I get hit with a burglary charge. And so now I'm faced with a B felony, a class B felony, with a burglary, with things that had led up. And I'm not saying that's the case that led it there. It was multiple things. But finally, God said, hey, I'm gonna cut you down at the knees now. Like, it's time. And so realizing that I wasn't living for the right reasons. I had blamed fault on other people, haven't taken accountability towards myself, didn't really have a schedule or have a plan or direction for my life at all. And so I sit here in a jail cell for a year straight, like just straight on through. End up pleading out to a plea, and which I'm spending a year in prison to do. And so now the most humbling thing I could do every day, sitting in a cell by myself for 24 hours a day, is talk to God, meditate, pray, think about my life. Like, where has this all come? And that's where self-conviction really came into play, man. I was like, I think about things in high school, junior high, the times we had as a kid, the trouble we used to get in just as dumb teenagers, into a young adolescent, into a young adult. And I think at this time, I'm like 24, 25 years old, spending a year in jail, can't talk to my family, don't have their phone numbers. So, don't have money to write them. So it was devastating, but at the same time, I really got to dive in deep to myself and really explore who I was as a person at that point.
Dude, think about this, like while you were sitting there, the feelings that you had were, initially sounds like, why me? Why did this have to happen? But then that shifted from like, okay, how can this happen for me? Like, what good can I take from this? And you started to look at it completely different. And that really determined the steps that you took coming out of prison that next year, because the thing is this, everybody has stuff happen to them. And it would have been easy. And there's probably a ton of people that start down that path, seeing some great success, in college and sports and academics and athletics. And then something takes place, a rattle happens, something shakes them where, you could say, hey, it was because of this, because of that, but it happened. And then the response is continuously going down into this victim mindset. And 5 years later, they're back in prison. 8 years later, they're back in prison. And it just spirals out of control. But you responded back to it in a different way that led to you coming out. And we'll talk about, getting into MMA and what took place there. But your response was everything. And that's the difference, no different than building a business. An agent will go out there and they'll sit with, 15 clients and they'll have 12 no sales. And the thing is this, that happens to many other people as well, but the response to it determines how long they're going to take that and turn it into a victory. And also because that happens and how they perceive it, that seed is determined on how they perceive what took place, meaning that they can leave that, that struggle, that adversity, the setback, and go to a higher level that they could have never got to if that didn't take place. Meaning that, I wonder, Juan, that, if that never happened, if it didn't get that bad, if you would have kind of went back into, college, got back in and continue to live, your life with some of these things that were holding you back, whether that was ego, pride, let me do it myself, not plugging in, this chip. But because that happened, you let go of things that were necessary and essential to let go of, to elevate to the fact of Bantamweight championship. And so I think it's just interesting how, oftentimes when we look back, the thing that we were enduring that seemed so just like difficult, man. And it seemed like, why do I have to go through this? And it almost seemed like, those areas where you could question God. In hindsight, with the right response, God will turn that out and work it out for good, which is what it says. He'll work out all things for good to those who love him and are called according to his purpose. Well, he has a purpose for everybody's life, he had a purpose for your life. But if that stuff didn't take place, then you would have never looked up, made those adjustments, found that seed that was buried in adversity that allowed you to plant it, harvest it, and get to these different levels. In fact, I want to talk about, we spoke about this a while back, and early on, into getting into MMA, you started to get connected into these different groups. Like you were on that show Kingdom, which was, big, it just went on Netflix, right?
Yeah. Just got it pulled off of Netflix now, but yeah, it was on there for like the last 2 years.
Yeah, man, and it was high on the charts. I remember coming out and us watching it in the living room, and you're like, dude, I'm on the, I got in and dude, this was a long time ago. You were just starting in MMA. You had just gotten through prison. You were just out. But your response to that adversity was like just humility, and I'm going to go the extra mile and do things for other people that weren't asked for me, and I'm not going to ask for anything in return. Can you kind of talk about that? Like how that led you into getting into some of these different, opportunities and doors that opened because of the response as you left and left all that stuff that was going on. And it wasn't like, woe was me. It was like, I'm going to let the past go. And now I'm going to step into and focus on my new future. And I'm going to create a different future than my past. Can you talk about some of those things you did that allowed those doors to open up?
Yeah. So I remember the last thing I did when I left jail, when those right before they told me, hey, in 2 hours you're leaving, so pack your stuff. I said, okay. So I dropped down to my knees. I promise you not. And I said, Lord, after these doors open, I don't know what you're going to have in store for me. I said, I promise to live for my family. I promise to live for you. Most importantly, I promise to live for you. And I promise to give everything I have and pour it into my family. Like, just please create doors of opportunity. Any door of opportunity you have open, I promise to walk through them. And I said, just keep me around the people that you need me around, and just please just guide me through this, and then take them out when they need to be taken out. Like, I remember just saying this over and over in my head, just like really manifesting this in my brain. Like, Lord, just please have these doors of opportunity ready. Let me walk through these doors of opportunity. Let the right people be around me at the certain part of the seasons that I need them around me. And Lord, I'll do everything I can for my family and live for them. So after leaving there, I go back to the house where I had all my stuff. And the only thing that was there was a Bible that my girlfriend at the time had given me. And I was like, man, I was like, no coincidence, right? I don't believe in coincidence. I was like, God, thank you. So I grabbed that Bible, and it was literally the only thing I flew home with from Indiana. I get back to Indiana, and I see my 1-year-old now. I hadn't seen he was about a year and 3 months old. I've only seen him when he was born, and then I didn't get to see him for a whole year when I was in jail. And I said, you know what? And I remember him rolling down the window and just being like, "That's my dad." And man, my heart melted. That point then and there, like him not even knowing me, like, and just saying like, "That's my dad," was heart wrenching enough that I knew, okay, I got to leave all this dumb stuff behind, and I'm gonna get a job. So the first thing that opened up was obviously construction. So two things I did the most in my life was construction and competition. So got a construction job, just started working daily, like regular, 6 in the morning, coming home at 7 at night, just wasting away. And my wife seen it. She was like, you need to like coach or do something. I said, no, I'm leaving all that behind. I know where this goes. Like, that's a different mindset. Like, I gotta do this. She's like, I promise you, like, you gotta do it. Then an opportunity came up to coach at Victorville High School to help out. And she was like, just go coach there for the rest of the year. So I start coaching wrestling, fall back in love with the sport, especially coaching, because nothing's great. Wrestling is a poor man's sport. Like, you're not going to get rich being a coach. You're not going to get rich doing the sport. Wrestling is just true grit. It's the oldest sport in the world, and it's just true grit. It's one man against another. What you put into the sport is what you're going to get out. How much you pour into these kids is what you're going to get out of them. So I poured my heart and soul into these kids, like with nothing, with no expectations. Like, hey man, like, if you want to be a champion, I'll get you there. Like, I know the formula now. Like, being out of college, I know how to get you to be a world champion. I know how to get you to be a national champion. I didn't do it, but I could guarantee I could coach you to do it. So started having success, state champions in California, and my name starts growing. And I was like, okay. And then kind of torn back and forth now. Now I'm like, man, I kind of want to wrestle, but I got to work. Like, no, I'm just going to work and coach. Like, I promised my girl, like, that's all I'm going to do. So I started a kids youth program that started blowing up. I ended up getting like 60 kids, get a sponsor from Purdue that was an alumni, wanted to invest in the program. And I had this guy that was helping me out. All of a sudden he turns crazy and like starts like wanting the check, wanting it in his name, like make a bank account for him. I said, dude, I can't do that. Like, so that door, that opportunity just shuts. I knew, even my dad told me, like, my dad was like, your best bet is to rip that check up and walk away. I said, Lord, is this what you want me to do? Like, prayed about it. And I said, and the whole ride with my dad, that's all he brought up. Like, you're on probation. This guy's a correctional officer. Like, started bringing up all these things. I said, okay, you're right. Rip up the check. And then now from there, I told my wife tells me, babe, just compete. Like, that's a sign for you to go compete. Like, go fight MMA. And I was like, well, just so you know, this is going to be very demanding. Like, I don't do things half-assed. If I do something, I'm 100% in, right? So I just felt like it was a calling, and prayed about it a lot. Talked to my pastor. He was like, well, you know where this path's going to take you. Like, this is a very dark road. I said, I know, but I said, my wife honestly thinks I will be that light, that vessel in this dark place to shine and to like grow the Lord's name, and like be able to change people's lives. And so he said, okay, if you feel God calling it on your heart, do it. So I said, okay. So I started fighting. At the time I was 5-0. Have my first, I think I'm making it to a big show. I'm like, okay, my next fight's for a big show. I won my first world title for Gladiator Challenge. I'm 5-0 with the world title. And now I'm fighting for this company called World Series of Fighting. It's on a big stage. Well, the opponent pulls out last minute, the week of. They replace the guy. I don't care. I'm ready. I fight the guy and I lose. And I'm freaking devastated, man. I'm like, I wanted the perfect record. I wanted to be this guy. But the problem was, again, I was fighting to not lose. I wasn't fighting for the passion. I wasn't fighting for, to go and perform. I was fighting with the again egotistical trip of being the greatest, not growing as a person, not having that aspect of like get as best as you can, like screw like what people think about you, because that's what I left behind in that jail cell. I don't care. Like I already have a felony. I don't care what people think about me. I was like, I got to get back to that mindset. And so I had my second child, my daughter, who's been a blessing in my life. A lot of adversity with her, but growing day by day with her, and her every adversity she faces and she gets over, she builds me up even more, makes me stronger. So it's awesome to see how relentless kids are. And so I said, okay, I too need to be relentless, be that person, practice what I'm going to preach to my kids when they start getting older. And so I jumped back on the horse. And from there, we talked to a promoter who was kind of shisty, but we knew what we were getting into. All we asked was for a non-exclusive deal so we could fight other organizations. And then at that time, I realized like, man, God's really opening out doors of opportunity, because Joe had just stepped on a show called Kingdom. He said, hey, I got a job for you where you could work, make money all day and train and not have to go to work. I was like, how is that possible? He said, I'm on a TV show. I just got the MMA consultant where you'll get paid all day being on set, and all you got to do is train and just be a background person. I was like, no way. I was like, all right, let's do it. So I become an extra on this TV show. And at the time, again, God had created an opportunity for my wife and I and for my new family. Her parents had moved out of this house. At the time, rent for us is like $1,200. And I'm like, we're scraping tooth and nail. And I told my wife, I don't want you to work anymore. Just take care of the kids and let me find a job. Let me do the income. Well, the house she was renting, their parents were renting, she grew up in, was only $500 a month. And so another opportunity that God had just opened, like, here you go. Like, I'm creating this path for you to take it. Like, and my wife's like, and then now we start getting bus back from her. She's like, I don't want to live in a house I grew up in. And I was like, my brothers said they'll help remodel it. We'll redo it. It won't even be the same house. We do it. Luckily, scraping tooth and nail. And so we're paying $500 a month for a rent and a house, like unheard of, right? And then especially in California. So I'm driving, like spending every day in the car, leaving at 6 a.m, not coming home till 11. And but it's, what are you willing to sacrifice now? God's like, what are you willing to sacrifice now? I'm opening these doors of opportunity. Like, you're taking them, but what else are you willing to sacrifice? Are you willing to sacrifice this time alone? Are you going to abandon me and say, you got this again? But, during when you're in a car, you want to listen to music, right? So instead, I listen to Billy Graham, like Pastor Chuck, like just these great sermons, and just rebuilding myself up, like people that really could break things down for me, like the history of the Bible, and like really apply what's going on in life now, and just like motivational speeches, Eric Thomas, like just really good motivational podcasts, like things you're doing right now, Paul, for people that are just huge inspirations that you don't even know. Like if you had this podcast, and I was still driving every day, I'd be listening to it, because I would find that motivation in what you're talking about, what we're talking about. And so, I mean, this goes on for 3 years, and I become a 4-time division champ, the first MMA 4-division champ. I'm meeting guys like Nick Jonas, Frank Guerrillo, Mark Consuelos, Kelly Ripa, and they're asking me, to stay there at their house, help them with their weight cut for the set on the show. What do I owe you? I'm like, don't worry about it. Like, this is my job. Like, this is my passion. Like, this doesn't work for me. This is what I love doing. Like, I love hanging out with people and like seeing them acquire their dreams. And, at this time too, we're hanging out, we're talking, you're telling me how good your business is doing. I'm on the border of almost leaving MMA because I want to get into insurance, because you're killing it. At this time, your business is, thriving as well. But again, I'm faced on these borders, like of these opportunities. Like, I'm like, Lord, what do I do? Like, I'm praying about it, because I'm not saying harassed. I'm getting really good influence and good advice from not just you, our other friends, Andrew and Daryl and Ben, and like all these guys doing really successful. But I feel like this isn't my journey. Like I'm doing a good job on where I'm at. I'm meeting these actors. I'm not making a bunch of money. Like I'm still scraping by. We're still scraping by as a family. And, you know, it starts creating more opportunity for me. Like now I not only people didn't invest in me to give me money, they invested in me as a person, like to hang out. Like who gets to say they hung out with Nick Jonas? He flew me on a jet to go watch one of his performances in Las Vegas and hung out with me and my wife and like got to sit backstage with them, drink a couple shots with them and like smoke a stogie with them. Like that was awesome, you know, like he invested in me as a person, not financially. And so we got to build a relationship. Like,
well, dude, hey,
money.
I've got like 5 things that are just like going in my head that I have to highlight, dude. You
Yeah,
so
get it out there
already, dude. That
yeah.
I want to kind of touch upon a couple of things because, dude, for one, you know, when you shift your focus from like what I could get and almost being like, you know, what, and everybody has it, man. Like, dude, I have it where it's like I want to be the best because I want to just stand at the top of the mountain and like, hey, man, look what I've accomplished. And but when you go back to like why you're doing it and how it can be of service to others and how it can give value to other people, that's where it makes that's where you get the best from you. That's where you could go from good to great. Like I think that at the end of the day, if it's just about you and how you can accomplish something, you might see some success, but you'll never be significant. You'll never be significant. And your ability to go out there and perform when it's just based off of self accolades that'll always hit the ceiling. You always have a ceiling, but when it's about giving to others and showing your expression of love, because I want to show people how passionate I am. I want to glorify God. I want to do whatever that may be for everybody. Everybody's different, but whatever that is for you, I think that that's the floor to something that is that has no ceiling, where you can go and just become significant. And I think it's the same thing for people in the field that are in this business that are sitting with clients or hiring agents. If it's about how can I go out there and just write 20K, if it's just about a transaction, like I want to just make X amount of dollars, well, then you'll never be transformational in what you're doing, meaning that you're not going to go sit down and help the amount of clients you could help because they'll know it's about you. And you're not going to have the ability to go out and have an opportunity maybe where a client says, hey, talk to this person. They've got 300 grand in a 401k. Maybe you could reach out to them or hey, having this agent or somebody that might be good looking at the insurance industry, that door's not open because you're just wanting to build a big team because you want big numbers. No, you want a big team because you want to make a big difference. You want to help more people. And so I love that one, because when you talked about, you know, going from like, hey, I just wanted to have that perfect because it would look good from everybody else. Dude, that's what everybody has it in them. But when you can do away with that and say, I want to go out there and perform so I can inspire the people. And then you start to get back to this passion, and then you go out and build experiences with passion that produces commitment. And now you're committed to it. Now it doesn't matter if you have 3 losses or 7 wins in a row. Man, this is just what I do. I'm committed to it. I'm going to give myself to it. And see, I think it's one thing to find like what you're passionate about, find what your why is, and whatever that pursuit is. But once you find it, you need to lose yourself to it. And that's going to be reflected in sacrifice. When somebody says, no, man, I'm all about, I want to build a business. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be the CEO of my business. I want to be able to pass on generational wealth. I want to be able to give 100 grand to a charity. I want to tithe X amount to my church. I want to be able to make an impact with this. Okay, I hear you, but your sacrifice is going to reflect that true level of commitment. Is it something that you're just merely passionate about, but you don't even have experience behind it because you're not that devoted to it? It's like a hobby. Or have you lost yourself to it? And dude, I know as I've kind of been, you know, we've kind of taken this journey together as I've built the insurance business and you built this MMA career, that dude, there was no question that you were sacrificed, man. We'd have conversations and I was working 100 and, you know, it seemed like 180 hours a week. Dude, you were working 180 hours. You know, it's like, hey, dude, you want to, when you wanted to get together with me, I'm like, dude, I'm on a 5-day trip doing meetings. I'd call you up, like, dude, you want to get together? He's like, dude, I can, man. I'm training for the next 7 days straight, you know? And it was just the way it was, which that's the way it should be, you know, because you're sacrificing so much to build something that in the end was going to produce fruit. And now you're starting to see that, man, as you've built this career up, you're starting to, see the fruits that delayed gratification was a process to endure, but you sacrifice so much. Talk about one, like, going into, you sacrifice throughout all the camps. And I've seen that, like, it doesn't seem like you ever have a camp that stops, dude. I don't know if you've ever had a week off, dude, because I talk pretty frequently. I'm like, dude, do you ever have a week where you could just eat a cheeseburger or hang out or do something, but you're just always training? Which is probably why you've got so many different belts and your record is what it is. Like, what's your current record right now?
25-2.
Which is crazy. And I know you're still mad about the 2, but dude, 25, that's a great record.
Yeah, absolutely.
What does it look like going into fight week? Like, how do you prepare, like, diet, mindset? What does that all look like as you go into preparing for fight week? Because right now you're preparing, like, you're in, are you quarantined right now?
Yeah, quarantined for 24 hours. Yeah.
And you're out there at the Mohegan Sun in Connecticut.
Mohegan Sun.
Which is probably about 5 miles away from Family First Life's corporate headquarters, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Man, talk about your preparation, fight week and mindset and how you kind of prepare for that mentally.
Yeah. So starting out my camp, like, as soon as I get a date, from then it's all about preparation for fight week. Like, some people say, like, oh, okay, like, I'll wait till I get to Mohegan Sun, for instance, and start my weight cut. Well, as soon as I sign that dotted line and I know I'm fighting on this date, like, that's fight week for me. So, like, my whole camp, my regimen is my diet, like, all refined carbohydrates go out the window, sugars, breads, pastas, like, everything just goes out the window. And I started trying to find the most, like, basic foods we could eat, but still having proper, like, seasoning for it, because you don't want to just be eating bland stuff. It sucks, right? So nutrition wise, like, that starts from day one. It should be for all athletes, and that's why you see a lot of struggle with people, because they wait to the last second. Again, if you don't prepare to win, you prepare to lose. So the preparation is right then and there. As far as mindset wise, from there, it goes with your training. Like, if you're very unsure of yourself when you get to fight week, it's because you didn't turn over every stone during training camp. Did you do your strength and conditioning? Did you do your mitts? Did you do your wrestling, your sparring, your boxing, your jiu-jitsu? Like, it's funny because MMA is basically called a ADD sport, like attention deficit disorder. Like, you were all over the place, right? You could do boxing, you could do wrestling, you could do kickboxing. Like, it's perfect for a guy like me that loves to be all over the place, because if I get bored with one, I can go to the next. So, but you got to make sure, if you're going to be a top level athlete, that you're checking all these boxes throughout the whole week. Like, obviously I can't do 5 practices in one day, so I got to split it up. I got to be able to hold my jiu-jitsu and wrestling practices, do my strength and conditioning, do my kickboxing and boxing, and have my sparring sessions, and still make sure I'm getting recovered. Recovery is one of the biggest tools that's left behind. Without proper recovery, your body's going to shoot up that cortisol level, withhold a lot of stress. And so you're never going to heal. You're never going to recover. And that's why that causes lack of performance. Same thing when you're, spending too much time working. And then all of a sudden you're like, man, this whole week's gone by so fast. My head's spinning. Like, dude, take a day and enjoy yourself. Go to the golf course and relax and hit some balls and just let your mind be free, right? Hit that reset button. So that helps me get ready for this fight week. When fight week comes, it's like the perfect storm. I'm calm, I'm cool. It's the eye of the storm right now. It's waiting, everything's settled. And then as soon as I'm 2 days out to make this final weight preparation, because I start the camp at 185. I'm human. I love pizza. I love cheeseburgers. I love burritos and tacos. So my weight shoots up to 185 pounds. And right now I'm dropping all the way down to 135 pounds. This morning, woke up about 150. So I'm still about, 15 pounds out, but it's all water manipulation. Like, my body's ready to let go of that water. And so these last 2 days really get you that storm brewing. And then I recover going into Thursday night. And then after recovery, I really put on a good sermon. Rest of the day, I spend my time on a Friday morning. I'll spend it in prayer, devotionals, like just not, I don't need to get raged out and like hate someone to fight. I know the Lord has me. I have a strong faith. You know, my faith is, my faith in God, as crazy as it sounds for people, like, yeah, but you're a fighter. Like you have to hate someone to fight. No, I'm a performer. Like I go out there and I compete. I'm competing against another person. Some people that I compete against are Christians, you know, like I'm a Christian, and you know, it doesn't mean that I'm an evil person. We're still going to go in there and violently fight each other. We just happen to be, you know, that's just my calling. That's who I am. So I know that, and I know that I got kind of a good motivation that I always keep dear to me is you got to separate what you do from who you are, and that's how I could sum up how I get ready for fight week. I separate who I am compared to what I do.
That's so good, dude. And I think that, you know, a lot of times it's easy for somebody to, you know, kind of tie their identity to their title or their trophies. And that's kind of what we talked about in the first half. You were talking about, you know, really tying your identity to your trophies, like getting your fulfillment and good feeling and identity from what you had accomplished, and how that's just a fleeting thing. It'll erode over time and it never lasts. And it actually leaves you more empty, depleted than ever before. It's, you know, it'll crush you. And then the other person, you know, it's based off their title. Well, this is who I am because this is what I do. Well, that's not the case. You know, you're a child of God. You know, that's, if you can get your confidence and borrow from that identity, then you're gonna go out there and be the best person in that specific title, and you're going to probably have more trophies than most because your source is correct. Your source is adequately going to feed you and nourish you the way it needs to be. And that's just such an important thing. And I think to nowadays, you know, with social media and all the things that are taking place, it's so easy to get caught up in, you know, what are people thinking about me, and this fictitious facade of like, you know, this is who I am. And it's all pretty much not even accurate, dude. And so now everybody's comparing their behind the scenes, like their struggles, adversities, the doubt, disbelief that we all have, you know, deal with. They're comparing that to everybody's highlight reel. Like, man, like that person's a perfect dad. That person's a perfect this and that. It's like, no, they're just showing you the good stuff. They're probably more dysfunctional than us. You know, we're all they're probably even worse off. And I think that if you could just always plug back into the source for anything, it makes a big difference. And I realized that as I stepped out of the field and started to spend more time hiring and working in leadership development, working with the teams and agencies, and that my identity was somewhat rooted in my title, you know, of like, I'm a top producer. And I realized that, you know, that was a tough time because I felt more empty each week because I never knew that until I actually had a chance to step out of it and take a look. It was like an out of body where I'm like, no, man, I've been misplacing who I really am. This is not who I am. You know, I'm not just that person. I can't just live by that label. I'm many different things, you know? And so I think that's a big, big deal, man. The funny thing is, I remember, you know, for my birthday week, and we went to Torrey Pines, right? We had dinner and stuff. And I was asking Janae, I was like, man, where's Juan at? And then, you know, we're at this nice steakhouse, dude. Like, dude, I got a big steak staring at me, dude. And I look over, and you weren't even in camp. You were going through an experiment to kind of like, you know, trick your body out. And dude, you know, you weren't fighting in a week. You weren't even fighting months. This is, you know, back in December. You haven't fought since December. But dude, you had like it looked like cat food or something, dude. It was not
a bunch of vegetables put together.
Yeah, vegetables of like stew, dude. And you came down and you sat there, man, at the dinner table and at the restaurant, and you ate that stew stuff that had nothing in it because it was a complete new detox that you were doing. And that's the thing, man. Like, I think that too often, you know, people fall short of the success they can have because they compromise too much. Like, dude, you could have easily convinced yourself that, man, it's my buddy's birthday. It's one dinner. It's not a big deal. But because you're so committed to being great at what you're called to be great at, that you didn't let that pull you. And see, I wonder if there's somebody on here right now that the greatness before you is being clouded by the feeling and temptation to continue to do what you feel like doing and finding justifications to feel okay with it. But if you were just to say, no, I have to go to the last appointment at 9 o'clock, even when I don't feel like doing it. No, man, I got to wake up at 5 a.m. even though I don't feel like it because I got in the door late last night from, working, but I said, I'm gonna wake up. I wonder if you just committed like that, like Juan did, like eating that stew when you didn't have to. That makes such a big difference. That's such a great example of a successful characteristic and quality that no matter what you're doing, no matter where you apply yourself, it could be a parent, spouse, business, whatever it is. If you apply that principle, it'll make a massive difference. It's going the extra mile, even when there's things that seem so pleasurable and beneficial that are on the way to that mile. That's the difference. And you made a big difference. When I watched it, I was like, dude, I wonder if I'm even that committed, like I always thought myself that, when I was getting ready to go dial the phones, and I didn't feel like dialing the phones because I had a big day the day before. And I got somebody, Tosh calling me. I'm like, man, I want to see the girls. I'm trying to convince myself to leave the office without that last appointment book. I said I was going to book 12, but I'm at 11, and just realizing, okay, no, I said it. And more important than that one appointment is the fact that I'm starting to build the reputation that says I can have self-confidence, that I got integrity with myself, that when I say something, I follow through. Because you could have had that steak. It would have been one meal. And that one meal would have made the big difference. The big difference would have been you knew that you didn't stick to something that you said you were going to stick to. I think that's such a big deal, dude. I know we're going a little overdue, but I got another question I want to ask you.
Absolutely.
So when you go into a fight, dude, I mean, I remember, back in high school, we got in a couple fights together, not me and you, but team fights, our team versus somebody else. And, I think that I always watch, when I'm watching you go in and fight and watching anybody go in a fight, like, dude, are you ever like afraid? Like, what is that? What is that feeling as you go into a fight? And then how do you handle all that?
Yeah. You keep around people again that are going to build you up. And so honestly, like this whole fight week, I have guys like TJ Dillashaw, Cub Swanson, like Dwayne Ludwig, and like sometimes, other big name MMA fighters that I train with around me during fight week, because it's that confidence building. You're feeding off each other's energy. But we warm up, we're in the locker room, we're together. You're still keeping that camaraderie. But then there's a window, there's a small window that they get pushed out to the ring, and then you're stuck there, and reality sinks in like, damn, I'm about to fight right now. This is kind of nervous. Like,
how do you
did I do everything?
In the face, you know what I mean? It's like when Mike Tyson said, it's all fun and games until somebody hits you in the mouth, right?
Yeah. And then like they tell you, okay, you got 4 minutes. You're like, 4 minutes? You told me I had 1 minute. Like now I have 4 minutes to sit here and think about like the fight. And then like you start processing, like, shit, man, like I'm not really gonna get in a fight right now. But then again, you got to find your grounding tools. And that's what when you were talking about all those things, like, perception is reality. Well, and so these people, they see people's perception and then they think it's reality. Like, no, we go out there tough in our mind, like, perceiving to be not scared, but deep down inside, like, man, I don't want to get embarrassed in front of millions of people right now. Like, this is nerve wracking, but so what's your grounding tool when you go in there? For me, I remind myself, okay, there's one person out there that feels exactly the same way I do. There's one person out there that put in the same time that I did. Okay, that makes me a little more nervous now that I start thinking about, did he train as hard as I did? Well, I turned over every stone that I walked, the path that I walked, to make sure there was nothing under there. And that gives you confidence. And now you start thinking about the fight, the game plan. You say, okay. And you start building more confidence. Then your song hits on that, for me, I always listen to it and right before practice, because it helps flip that switch. Like subconsciously, like you talk about meditating and manifesting and things like that. Like, what are you telling yourself throughout the day for success? Are you telling yourself like, man, I didn't make this phone call. Man, I got caught up with all this stuff. I didn't accomplish what I needed to accomplish today. Like, and then you start self-doubting, you start putting negative thoughts in your mind. Well, when I'm in the car, I'm always telling myself, end still, or like the best performance I've ever had, and I'm constantly reminding myself I'm putting in the hard work. This is a sacrifice. These are my sacrifices. So that when that song comes on, it reminds me of sitting in my car and driving stuck in traffic, or all the, times being beat up during practice and driving home. It flips that switch. It gives you that grounding tool to let you know, like, we're all human. Like, who cares? I'm doing what I get to. I'm doing what I get to, what I love to do. Like, go out there and fight and perform in front of millions of people. That's a dream for people. Like, that's their goal, So that kicks in, and I'm like, all right, time to go have fun and do it. So that's what,
dude,
that's what goes on.
The Navy SEALs say, people think that they'll rise to the occasion, but you don't rise to the occasion. You fall to the level of your preparation. And dude, that's a lot of what you're talking about. Like, you can be confident that, man, you turned over every stone and you did what you had to do. And so now it's just to go out there and execute, right? And you've got a game plan as you go into the fight, and it's just to execute on the plan. But the preparation, you're not sitting there questioning, like, man, I know I should have went and hit that extra camp, but I didn't. I know I was supposed to go train on Saturday, Sunday this last week, but I decided not to, and I took it off with the family. I know I should have done this. That stuff doesn't come out. You've almost kind of suppressed the should I's. I should have done this. And it's like, I did what I needed to do. And so let me just kind of go out there and focus on the task at hand. My preparation is done. And I think that's such an important thing for everybody to do. When you go out and dial or book appointments or see clients or run an ad and hire somebody, like, did you do all your preparation? Is in the preparation is planned. Like, your preparation is not just, let me just prepare today. Today I'm going to go train and do these things. I'm going to go to this camp. I'm going to go to this training lab, whatever, that you have that planned. And so for everybody on here, they have the same thing when it comes to the business. They can put in these podcasts and trainings and different regiments, these boot camps that they go through, and that helps. It's a planned thing, but then you execute on the plan. That plan will lead to preparation. And then when you go out there and you play the game, when you're in the actual fight, when you're actually with a client or you're helping an agent, you've built yourself up to go out there and execute at the best level that you could execute at. And I think that's a big, big deal. And also I think the triggers too, for me, I'd always listen to like the same podcast with phone script before I, dial the phones, or before I would get out of my door and go walk in the client's house. I would listen to a podcast that would help put me in the zone. And it was like that trigger that, man, I got everything going on, and everybody's got life, my mom having brain surgeries and all these different things taking place, leaving the other company, dealing with litigation. And I even think about, Juan, when you had, when Fabi had, Fabian had the surgery that was right before your fight, and that big thing that, dude, that can eat, like, dude, you're a dad of 3, I'm a dad of 4 daughters. And it's like, dude, there's nothing harder than that as far as what could pull your mindset off of going out there and doing your job than your little girl. And you went out there and got in the zone. And for that, 30 minutes or that block of time, you went out there and you gave it your all. And then once you got done with the fight, dude, I remember watching it, and there was so much emotion that hit. But, and dude, I remember watching it thinking, like, dude, that's just such another great example of a warrior and somebody that has successful principles ingrained in them. Like, dude, nobody would have known when you stepped into the ring what was going on. And Fabi had a big growth that, as I didn't even know, Tosh was telling me, I'm like, are you kidding me? Like how big of a deal that was. And but you were compartmentalized. You focused on what you had to do in the ring. And then after that, then the emotion kind of hit back in. And, but dude, that's the thing. Nobody has the market corner for life happening. The people that become a victim and don't respond right, they don't get to experience the benefits when you do. And you compartmentalized and went out there and executed, and then you were just as much of a dad and emotional after the fact about it. And that's what it takes, dude, And so I think that's just such a big deal, dude. Last thing I'll say is, as you look at, talking about these different doors that have opened, man, I just know that, when you're out there and you're selflessly going out and just giving it all you've got and not looking for things in return, good things take place. It's a whole, planting good seeds and you reap a good harvest. You can't go plant corn and all of a sudden you harvest cotton. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And you've done that, man. And now you've got all these things that are taking place, but what most people don't realize, it was so many different things that you did that you didn't have to do. So many different, things where your response was, I'm not trying to get something from, whether it was Nick Jonas or somebody else. It was just, no, I'm just going to be authentic, and I'm not going to be like everybody else, which is, how can I get notoriety? I just want to be, a good person, connect with you. And that always comes back around, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think we've seen that in this business, as Family First Life is now expanded and become the number one IMO in the nation by a long shot, on the course to $1 billion company. It was set in place by leaders and Sean and all these people that said, no, we're just going to go out and give as much as we can possibly give without expecting anything in return. And we don't have to, we'll work on small margins, a little bit on a lot. And it was a long process because of it. But now, as we've gotten to the harvest, it's so much better tasting, so much greater and grander than it would have ever been if it was done selfishly, or what is it in, what can I get from this? And it's just a big deal. Well, dude, going into,
I think a good,
yeah, go ahead, man.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think a good thing too, to remind people is, like, I wasn't looking at your finish line of success, right? I mean, as much as, I was like, man, Paul's killing it. Like, I want to make money. Like, of course, everyone wants to make money. I'd be lying to you right now if I didn't say that jealousy kicked in of, like, dang, you're killing it. I'm so happy for you. You got but people don't see the sacrifices. They just see, man, Paul's killing it. He's writing off these many numbers a month, and, like, it wasn't something that held me back. And so, when you're striving out there to be great and you're trying to go out there, don't look at other people's finish line. Don't follow other people's path, because we're the authors of our own story. Like, I couldn't write down that my daughter was going to go through this, like, but I knew this was the path that I had to go through. These are the emotions I had to hit going through these hurdles to get to that finish line at the time. Like, okay, like, hurdles are going to come, but if we get knocked down by them, you get back up and you continue the race until you get to that finish line. Never start something you're not going to finish. And just because someone's path looked easier than yours, you don't understand the sacrifices they went through, to get there and be in the position they were in. Some people might look over at you and say, you're carrying a heavier cross than them. Some might look over to the right and say, man, they're carrying a lighter cross than me. But at the end of the day, you step into that cross room, you put your cross in there, and you realize, you look around, you point, I want that small cross, and you realize that was a cross you walked in with. Then you're like, oh man, like, dang, I didn't know that. Like, I didn't know there's people with this many different adversities or had these different roads to get to their finish line, And I think that's an important mind state to have.
Well said, dude. I mean, run the race that's set before you, not somebody else's. And run it well. It's when you're looking at everybody else. And I think too, man, is celebrating people that are seeing success running a different race. If you want something, celebrate it. It's hard to get what you're pointing at and well, look at that person, or you try. But if it's like, man, praise God that they're seeing the success, it's a big deal. I always want to be the person clapping the loudest in the room for people that are seeing success, because what I applaud for is what I'm going to step into. And I think that's a big deal, man. Well, dude, this Friday, what time are you going on, man? How does everybody go on and watch you fight this Friday?
Yeah, so I believe the main card starts 7 Pacific time, so that'll be about 10 o'clock here at Eastern, I believe, is the main card. If you tune into Showtime, I'm going to be the main event. So 5-round title fight defending against Sergio Pettis, big name. So going to be a great fight. Cinco de Mayo weekend, so bust out the chips, the salsa, the margaritas, and the cervezas, and have the carne asada on the grill, because it's going to be fireworks.
Let's go, man. Hey, I'm excited. You're looking forward to watching you guys. Plug in this Friday. Watch Juan. You could follow Juan as well. His follow is going to be listed right here. So plug in. And this is one thing too, I'll tell you guys to wrap up. Make sure to subscribe and comment. We do a drawing each week. So whoever comment, we just put them in a bowl. We'll pull it out. It's $250 in lead credit that you get every single week. We already did it this Monday. We'll have an additional one because this is a Tuesday special podcast coming out for $250 in lead credit. Notify yourself. Have the bell.
I didn't even tell you this, but I'll even throw a signed in jersey of mine for the guy who wins the raffle this week.
Awesome, guys. So there you have it, man. That's great, dude. Thank you. And guys, plug in, follow on, watch this Friday. And I hope this served you well. Go out there, make it a big week, and hopefully this week is bigger than last week. So stay strong, be steadfast, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.